Welcome back to the Results Driven Podcast, where today we have a special guest, Jeff Bragg, with Bragg About This Dump, right? And today we're going to get into some fun topics. We're going to be talking trash, okay? Literally talking trash. So we're going to talk about how certain things, when it comes to the trash business, how it can affect your project timelines. But then we're also going to talk about how Jeff went from, we graduated together, went from doing it all himself, how he built out his business, and how he's been able to remove himself more and more, and how he's planning to continue to grow. So I always love talking business with other like-minded individuals like Jeff here, and let's dive in, man. Welcome to the show.
Hey, I appreciate you having me. First off, let me start off saying, actually, we were supposed to graduate together.
That's right.
I didn't quite make it to the podium. And that's a big part of my story. A lot of people early on, they were saying, this guy is going to be an absolute failure because he didn't make it through high school. And I just like to tell other folks and parents, like, hey, just because he's, a shithead at this age doesn't mean it's going to be forever. There's an end game in mind. There's a goal, and there's much that people can do, even though they didn't make it quite through formal education.
Yeah.
So.
Well, you know what's funny about that? I mean, my degree's in civil engineering, and I don't really use my degree today.
Exactly. And a lot of people went down that same path, got themselves in tens and thousands of dollars in debt, and ended up doing a completely different, unrelated thing. And early on, I knew, like, other than baseball in school, I didn't have much ambition for school. I knew that my power was in networking and talking to other people and just betting on myself. And that's kind of how we got started in the dumpster business. If we want to go back to early days, me and Josh, we went to school together, but we didn't quite hang out in the same circles by any means.
Yeah.
We kind of got reintroduced to my buddy, Woody, which I don't know if you guys know him as Woody. That was his baseball name, but
we don't call him that.
Yeah. I don't think he's called that over here. But so Woody introduced us. And at the time, I was in the middle of flipping a property with my mom. Me and my mom came to do I think you guys just started your education course around that time. It was like in the early days of education.
Very early days.
Yeah. And Caleb said, hey, you need to come check out what they got going on over here. They have the systems and processes they can make, doing from 1 flip to 100 flips is much easier than finding out your own, difficult way. So
right.
I was like, all right, we'll sign up and do it. And along the education process, I realized that me and my mom just, don't see eye to eye when it comes to flipping houses, like.
Well, it's good that you found that out early, because most people find that out about their business partners, like, when it's way too late. They're way deep into it and it doesn't work out, especially with a family member. I mean, we always tend to go to friends or family because it's the people that we're closest to. And I'm glad that it didn't result in, like, any bad feelings or anything like that. So
no, absolutely not. Me and my mom are still close to this day. It's just that she is too hardworking for her own good. She wants to do everything herself. And I realized coming into the education that, hey, you guys make systems and processes for a reason. There's a reason you guys are flipping, I think, 40 or something houses that year, and we're doing one every 8 to 9 months because we're trying to do too much of the labor on our end and learning how to tile, learning how to drywall instead of just having people come in and do it. So that's where me and my mom parted ways on that flip after it was successfully sold. And then I went to do my next house, and this was on my own with a few group of friends. And throughout the process, I could not get a dumpster on site. 5 different companies reached out to. 2 actually told me they delivered the dumpster. And so when they told me they delivered the dumpster, I had 6 guys show up to help me demo. They got there before me. They call me, they say, hey, Jeff, we don't have a dumpster here. What's going on? So out of pure spite and just being pissed off, I go out and I buy a truck and a dump trailer. And I'm like, hey, it might not pay itself on this first one, but 5 or 6 flips from now, this dump trailer will pay itself off. And throughout the course of your guys' your real estate teachings, I learned, instead of fighting you guys for all the deals out there, I'm just going to ride your guys' coattails and then pick up a small nickel on every house that you purchase and do the dumpsters for the gig. And I believe your contractor at the time had about 5 or 6 crews. I went out and bought 4 or 5 more dumpsters. I was successfully doing that, but then they started growing at an outrageous rate. So I had to start leveraging some of the lessons you taught me in private lending to be able to keep up and grow my inventory to match the needs.
Yeah. So let's talk about that for a second. So you have your own capital, you go all in on this opportunity, right? And One, talk about your mindset around like what gave you the confidence to invest in yourself.
So the confidence came from I'm not a gambling man. I don't go to the casino or anything. So the only bets I make are on myself. I tell people all the time that is the best bet you can make because it'll pay dividends in the long run. Some that you might not see in the early game, but it comes to fruition later on. I promise. I've always had the confidence to bet on myself. Even in school, like my grandfather who took me all my baseball practices, he said. One time I asked him for a bat, right? And he's like, Jeff, I just can't do it. Money's tight. I can't get the bat right now. So I'd take my little savings I had, go buy candy bars at Kroger's, start selling candy at lunch and recess in middle school. Got them for $0.25, sold them for $1. And by the end of 2 weeks, I had $345 to buy this travel baseball bat. And that was my first like entrepreneurial spirit of like, okay, you can do something on your own, create something and create revenue. And just go out and get it yourself. So I've always carried that chip on my shoulder from then on that, I have the ability to generate and create wealth just using my own money to compound it and make more money. So once I dropped out of school, if we're going to circle back to how it got started, I started going to Walmart distribution right out of high school. My godfather got me a job. I was the youngest working person in the entire corporation. The day I turned 18, I'm in the warehouse, chucking boxes. And I learned real quick that it's good money, but what is the price of health, right? What is the price of not being able to, walk the 2 days after you're done working your 312s and you have chub rub and you're like, man, you're like, my next 2 days aren't even days off. They're just recovery days.
Right.
And so I wanted to learn how to work, smarter, not harder, transition to the pizza business. We went out and saved capital from my warehouse gig. I went in 50-50 with my buddy Meach, Matt, is what everybody knows him as. And we bought a Giuseppe's Pizza franchise. And that's when I first realized, like, hey, 50-50 partnerships aren't always, what they're planned out to be in the beginning.
Right.
And during that process, we had a disagreement that couldn't be settled just by flipping a coin. And I just said, hey, look, we're best friends before we got into this. We can be best friends after, instead of, destroying that friendship over this crisis. How about you guys just buy out my half and I'll, take my half and move on and go do something else.
Right.
So that's how I got my capital back out of the pizza business, rolled over. I got an opportunity to go out to Oregon. I was friends with some hippie guys that blew a lot of glass. That was kind of the circle I was running with at the time, long hair, it's not,
that's where it came from.
Yeah, it doesn't leave much to imagination. Sometimes you can judge a book by its cover to an extent. So yeah, we were rolling around out in Oregon on a trip and came across an opportunity to buy a recreational weed farm, lease it, buy the license, sell to dispensaries, kind of live that West Coast dream. And I went out there with them. I did that for about 2.5 years. Things were going good until they weren't. There's a lot of violence out there, a lot of, cartel activity nearby. And
Wow.
One of my neighbors ended up having his head blown off at a gas station. And that was kind of my point of it's not worth the risk to be out here and do this anymore. I got family back home. I got dogs that I can't bring with me all the time. It just became more of a hassle than what it was worth to quote unquote live the dream. So I brought my money back, came out here, started getting the house flipping thing. And that's when, I ran back into you guys.
Right.
And once I bet all my capital back in on the dumpster business and I needed to get more inventory, I took a lesson from you guys on private lending, how you guys do 12% annually for flippers you take on private lending and you use that to leverage your deals. Well, I did the same thing with dumpsters. I had people, lend me money for 12% for a year. For the first couple of years, and it was going smooth until winter came because winter's slow in the dumpster business. So then payments were really fat in the winter, and it was a lot of stress on me in my pockets. I was penny pinching in the wintertime, and then I was living, the high life in the summer when the money's rolling good.
Yeah.
So I just kind of have taken that model and shifted it to work more with my dumpster business now. So private lenders have the opportunity to invest in a dumpster. Instead of paying 12% over 1 year, they pay 30. I pay them back 36% over 3 years. So I've just stretched that payment out. I pay more in interest, but the dumpster is able to cover that payment by itself without any extra of, money coming out of my pocket, which has helped growth tremendously.
So that's interesting. To break that down for those of you might be familiar with private lending. You may not be familiar with private lending. But what we do a lot, and this is really how we got off the ground. A lot of people think that in order to buy real estate, you have to have all this money, and no, you can use what's called OPM, other people's money. So what you do is you have the asset, right? And typically we're buying houses at a discount, a 50 to 60% discount to the market value. So as a result, I'll think of this from an investor's perspective. And when I say investor, I'm saying like an investor who's buying stocks. You can't buy stock at a discount. You buy it at the market rate in that moment, right? So you're not able to get a discount. And so you're now all of a sudden in the stock market, there could be a pop-up war that happens in another country, or there could be a politician that says something stupid, and that can absolutely affect the markets. But when it comes to the housing market, it's very rare for prices to tank very quickly. So it's a more safe, not to mention, again, you're getting an asset at about 50 to 60% of what it's worth. So what we do is we have other people act as the bank, right? They have a mortgage that is signed and a promissory note that is signed. Plus there's insurance on that house as well. So if it gets hit by a tornado or if it catches on fire, there is hazardous insurance in place. So now that investment is much more safe. You can never say that there's anything as like a guarantee or anything like that when it comes to investing. There's always risks when it comes to investing, but that hopefully you guys are able to see that that is a huge benefit to people who are looking to make double-digit interest returns, right? And you took the same concept, and I assume you use the dumpster as collateral in that scenario.
Absolutely.
Where like you have this piece of equipment that is worth so much money, and you're able to break that down to people to get them to invest. That helped you grow. So how much were you able to grow? And pay attention, guys, this absolutely applies to real estate and business and real estate businesses, okay? You used all of your capital, and I see a lot of people even in real estate, they use their capital, their own cash to buy these deals, and it limits their growth because the moment you put all your capital into your rehabs, then marketing has to pause, your operations have to pause. So how much were you able to grow and how quickly as a result of using leverage?
Okay, so using that leverage of other people's money, I was able to go from, I believe I had around 10 dumpsters using my own capital at the time. And my first private lender family, shout out Kevin, sent me $100K to buy another 10 dumpsters with. And once I was able to get those dumpsters and use those for
it's a case study now.
Yeah, just as like a trial run of how this thing is going to pan out. And from those 10 dumpsters, it took about 3 months of like, okay, we can make the payments. We can, up this to the next level. I can start taking on more jobs than just what Josh and Tiff are sending my way if I scale this with more inventory. So from that point, that was 5 years ago now, when we had 10 dumpsters, we've grown to 100 dumpsters in inventory, 2 additional trucks, semis, and paid back $1 million to date of other people's money. Wow. And that's just using the same. I mean, we've adjusted the system a little bit. Like I said, we started off with just 12-month terms, and it made cash flow tough in the winter. So we stretched it out over the 3 years, and the investors like it because they can get in with a lower entry point. As low as $10,000, you can invest in our business to get a dumpster, and so they like that aspect of it. Or maybe they have invested, 230 in your recent flip, and they have 20 or 30 remaining that they could use for something that's just laying around. Right. Well, that's the capital that we kind of piggyback and pick up from investors. So yeah, they like that there's a high interest return that's guaranteed. The security on it is a dumpster, which, I mean, who knows where to sell a used dumpster at, but I have people backed up behind me that are like, hey, we'll buy the dumpster if there was a default or anything like that. And they're signed into the contracts that we send out. So nice. Okay. Yeah, so you have a sense
more
of
insurance,
more sense of security in the process. Like I said, out of our 10 private lenders we have, 7 are returning lenders that have double dipped and returned a second time after their loan's been paid in full. So that's helped a lot with saying like, hey, this system works. These guys not just used it once, they've used it twice. So my cousin 3 times now on his third recycling. So yeah, man, I just can't thank you enough for teaching me that, and it's done wonders, for growing business.
And I think a good lesson just for everyone here that's listening is I think a lot of people are afraid to ask the simple question or afraid to talk about money. Let's call it what it is. I mean, a lot of times people grow up. I know I grew up in a household where we didn't talk money. My parents never talked finances with us as kids. So it's very common for us to have that belief of like, oh, we don't talk about money, and you miss opportunities like this. You miss opportunities like that that we leveraged to grow our real estate investing business. If we didn't use other people's money, we would have never been able to buy our first flip. And if we didn't buy our first flip, it sure wouldn't have led to a second or the first 100 or the, and how much that compounds. Yeah, absolutely. So don't be afraid to ask the questions. You miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. So always remember that. Now let's dive into talking trash here. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's talk about how dumpsters can affect logistics and timelines for a rehab project.
Yep. So let's go back to my example of my first flip I did on my own, right? I couldn't get a dumpster on there on site. I had 6 guys show up to do the demo. Well, what's it costing me per hour to have those 6 guys standing around waiting for a dumpster? Right there is a cost that you're not going to retain anytime. I mean, even if they stack the trash up somewhere, then they have to double handle it to get in the dumpster. You're just losing money. If you're using other people's money, you have holding costs. So say you get delayed a whole day or, even worse, 2 days because a dumpster can't get on site or can't get picked up for whatever reason. What's that costing you in interest every day? There's a price of missed opportunity if you're having your guys run, a dump trailer and loading up themselves and going and waiting in line at the dump when they could be doing the skilled labor to put your building back together, doing the construction phase. So you have to think about all these factors when it comes into like, how important is it that dumpster is there on time, making sure that this project can run smoothly? Because if you have to think about the dumpster, if there's extra headaches going into the dumpster, then that dumpster company is not doing their job correctly to keep you taken care of. We like to be preemptive. So like you say, hey, we're going to have crews on site tomorrow at 7 a.m. Well, we'll be like, all right, is it all right if we drop the dumpster tonight at 5 or 6? Mm-hmm. That way it's sitting there waiting, not waiting till 6:30 in the morning when a tire might have a flat and, because it happens. And instead of waiting at the tire shop to get swapped out, your dumpster's already there. I'm not worried about it. I'm not stressing like, oh man, I got to make sure this guy's, no, he's already been taken care of preemptively. And then when he calls for a swap later that afternoon, we're going to be ready for him.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that makes all that. So one thing that you mentioned there was time is money is what I heard.
Yep.
Time is money. And I know one thing that was really important to us was at the end of a job. Okay, so picture this. You're wrapping up your rehab project and you go through your punch list and, for whatever reason, some unknown pops up or the crew, they show up late and you're planning to have this thing cleaned. It's supposed to be staged. It's supposed to then get photos and then it goes live. And especially in this market today, like the timing of which you list a house is more important than it's been in a long time. And so if you have the opportunity to go live on a Thursday or a Friday, you're positioning yourself so much better because you give yourself a little bit of time, a day or two to start stacking up showings for the weekend. That's when most people are able to go look at houses. And so when we want to go and get photos, we want to make sure that we don't show up to the job site and there's a dumpster there. And even if there is a dumpster, right? I know that you guys would do this often. Like if there was a dumpster because the crew was there late last night wrapping up the project and here we are in the morning and we're getting ready to take photos. It was a simple phone call and you guys were able to be there quickly. And that was really important to us, whether that's throughout the project and our contractor making those calls to get those things swapped out quickly, very important to them. And for us at the end of the project and making sure our closeout goes smoothly, that was really critical.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm glad you appreciated that service because as much as I'd love my dumpsters to be in your guys' photos, they're good looking dumpsters.
Actually, just describe what they look like for everyone.
So my dumpsters, brag about this dump. We have the red, white, and blue dumpsters that you may have seen around town. If not, you definitely will see them now that I've mentioned it. They stick out. They're
like American flag.
They're American flag branded. They are. We dive into that wholeheartedly. We believe in have veterans in the family, so we give out military veteran, emergency personnel discounts along those lines. So we do take care of that. We know how important it is pictures are to the process. Even though it seems like one small thing at the end, it can make the biggest difference, like you said, in getting on the market and beating the competitive house that might get listed a couple hours later or the next day. And if you're not ahead of the curve, then you're missing out on a bunch of buyers' opportunities. Yeah. So
time kills all deals. We say that often in our office, and I couldn't believe it, I couldn't believe it or say it enough, right? Couldn't believe it anymore or say it enough. But any other like last minute comments on the dumpster business before I ask you the last question I like to ask everyone we have on the show?
Any final comments as far as what sets us apart, or what's some warnings for people when it comes to ordering dumpsters?
I think that would be a great. Those are two great topics to dive into.
Okay, so one thing that is like a pet peeve of me in the dumpster industry is pricing is all over the place. Dumpsters don't have a formal pricing model. Everybody kind of does it differently. But one that sticks out to me that just grinds my gears is if someone tries to price you per pound on a dumpster. If they say this is 8 cents per pound or 9 cents per pound. Well, if you do the math, I think 8 cents per pound equals like $160 a ton. But to the consumer, they just look at it like, oh, it's 8 cents a pound. That can't rack up to that much money. But we only spend $40 a ton to dump the waste. So if they're trying to make like a hidden, like basically have you do extra math to reach that they're making 160 on a ton, to just look at that as a red flag right off the rip. And then looking for other small nickel and diming, I don't know, some people in the dumpster company call them levers, different ways to make money off the consumer.
Yeah.
Whereas the kind of way we like to go about it is transparency. We like to just show the customer, hey, this is exactly our cost and dropping off, picking up, and dumping your dumpster, and we just make a 20% margin. That way it's fair across the board. You dump it light, you're going to pay lighter. You load it up heavy, you're going to pay heavy, but without like a crazy additional surcharges. It just is what it is, flat on the receipt, and you know you're getting the best deal because everybody's shooting for 30 or 40% margins. We're happy with our 20, but fast nickels over slow dimes. We're trying to do 100 projects a day versus, make money off 10 of them.
Right.
So that's kind of our strategy, and what I like to educate my customers and clients on is like, hey, just really read through those contracts and make sure you're not getting one, thrown over your head, because it happens every day where they're like, man, we were confused about your variable pricing, but then we ordered from this guy, and next thing we know, we have a $900 invoice in our email. We don't know how it got there. And I'm like, it's the fine print, the dumpster companies are all about the fine print. So, that's just my thoughts going into.
Yeah, no, I think that's awesome advice for anyone who's doing any kind of projects or people looking to get into projects. You're going to have a conversation at some point with someone about a dumpster. So it's good to understand those pricing models for sure. So, the question I like to ask everybody that comes on the show here is, what's a piece of advice that you would give someone, whether they just started their entrepreneurial journey, they're thinking about it, or even if they're at the beginning stages, or heck, let's even say someone has been doing it for a while. And this is something I love. Someone on our team had shared this concept with me. Let's actually give a piece of advice to someone who's going through this exact scenario. There's a difference between having 10 years of experience, right? Just think of that 10 years of experience where there's growth and there's consistent growth and achievement, right? Then there's having 10 years where you experience the same 1 year 10 times.
Yes, that's absolutely a thing. Yeah, so looking at it is going to sound cliche, but hire yourself a mentor, a coach, someone who's already been there, done that, reached the stages that you aspire to be, and copy their steps, but then make your own adjustments. Nothing is, you're not reinventing the wheel, but you're just adding, a chrome rim to it, what I mean, or something special that makes it your own, but take their formula and just doctor it up a little bit to fit your needs, and you're on the right path.
Yeah.
It's a tried and true method. You're not, like I said, you're not re-exploring any new avenues. Nothing in this world has been invented from scratch. It's always an inspiration, something from what's been seen or done before. So,
right.
So if you're going 10 years on your own, you might run into these headaches one at a time and have to deal with these hurdles and challenges. But if you talk to someone, at the beginning that said, hey, instead of going this straight route through all these hurdles, let's just curve around those, save yourself 10 years of trial and error, and get you on the right foot from year one. And whatever that price of cost is to get that mentorship is well worth the lessons and headaches that you're going to pay in the long term. You just don't see it yet.
Yeah.
And I've learned that just through the structuring of my business, through even setting up my workers' comp properly. It's just, and until from A through Z what works and what doesn't work, you're just setting yourself up for failure. Just a lack of education. I mean, coming from a guy who dropped out, I see the importance of learning from the more experienced folks and making sure that you set yourself up for success.
Yeah. What I love about that is Tony Robbins talks about that all the time. He calls it modeling. And he says that fulfillment is an art, meaning, if I put a picture up here and I ask everyone to vote, how many of you guys think this is like one of the top 10 prettiest or most amazing pictures or paintings you've ever seen? It's totally up to your opinion. Mm-hmm. But he says that achievement or success is a science. And he says, and think of it this way: if I asked you what's 1 + 2, everyone will always say 3, right? So we know that if we follow a proven framework, right, and you stick to it and you do it repeatedly, the end result should come.
Yep, absolutely.
Right. And that's a science. And that's exactly what you're talking about. Following a framework, modeling after someone who's already been there, done that. Phenomenal advice. Phenomenal advice. Thanks, man.
Yep. And to piggyback off that, most of my lessons in regards to that have been taken from the book Steal Like an Artist by Austin Kleon.
Yeah.
That was a really good short read that kind of puts that all in the perspective of like, any thought that's in your head is not an original thought. It's been inspired from somewhere. And you just take that. And like you said, follow the footsteps, the framework, and it's going to take you to places you couldn't believe that you're going to. You'd think like, oh, this is 10-year. Like for me, I was like 100 dumpsters. That's probably, a 10-year goal. I'll build it up to that, and, maybe 7 years if I'm lucky. But then with the using other people's money, I was able to fast forward that goal. We've actually had 100 dumpsters for about a year now. So I got there in, half the time that I originally thought was, crazy in my mind. But given the recipe, just followed it, scaled it, and here we are growing. And we're looking to get to what we think is our market cap of around like 250 dumpsters, I believe, and then exploring and going into different cities, headed to Detroit and maybe Clearwater, some opportunities that have been presented. So
nice, man.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like you guys have awesome plans for growth. I appreciate you coming on the show and sharing your story and giving the listeners here some tips and tricks to make sure that we're not getting screwed over in the dumpster business. Yeah, appreciate you coming on,
Absolutely.
man.
Love talking trash, man. This is
Yeah.
a good time.